Okay, today's lesson is going to be 5.7, and you've already learned to factor, which is going to be the first step in what you're doing. Well, actually, the first problems you do are already factored for you. So, what you're doing is you're solving an equation to see what the variable can equal. Like this problem right here, this number 1. Okay, that's a problem that's already factored for you, where it's equal to 0. It's going to have 2 answers. So what you're going to do is, you know 0 times anything is 0. So either one of these, if there's 0, it will come out to 0. So you're going to set each factor equal to 0. Say x plus 4 equals 0, and x plus 9 equals 0. So solving this one, you just subtract 4 for both sides, so x equals negative 4. And on this part, you subtract 9, so x equals negative 9. So if you put negative 4 here, negative 4 plus 4 is 0. 0 times that 0. If you put negative 9 right here, negative 9 plus 9 is 0. 0 times that is 0. So you have 2 solutions. Okay? Let's see, give you another one. How about 0 equals x times x minus 19? There's 2 factors, even though this one doesn't have parentheses around it. So set this factor, x equals 0, and this other factor, x minus 19 equals 0. This one is already solved, x equals 0. That's one of your solutions. Okay, x minus 19, just add 19. So you have x equals positive 19 and 0. If you want to put these answers on in your margin, what you would want to do is put 0, 19. Don't put parentheses around them. These are both x's. It's not xy like the coordinates you would graph. Just put both answers with the comma in between them, but no parentheses. That way you don't have to put x equals in your answers column. Okay, let's do one that has different numbers. Let's do 2x plus 9 times x plus 8 equals 0. Set each one of those equal to 0. 2x plus 9 equals 0, and x plus 8 equals 0. The x plus 8 is the easy one, right? Just subtract 8. So we have x equals negative 8, one of your answers. And what's the first thing you do when you have a multiply and an add?
Subtract.
Right. You want to do the add or subtract part first. So subtract the 9 from both sides. You have 2x equals negative 9. Now what do you do?
Divide by 2.
Divide by 2. So x equals negative 9/2 and negative 8. So in your answer column, you put both answers. It doesn't matter which order. And it leaves them improper, so don't worry about turning this into like 4.5. You can leave these answers all improper. Okay? So let's do another one. How about 13x plus 4, or plus 14, it don't matter. Plus 4 and 6x minus 5 equals 0. Set each one equal to 0. You're going to have to do 2 steps for both of these. That means you have to do the plus or minus and the division part. So what are you going to do with this one? subtract 4 first. And then divide by 13, right? So you have negative 4 over 13. And then this one, what do we do first?
Add 5.
Your,
Sides.
oh, I put that there. Add 5 to both sides. So you have 6x equals positive 5. And then divide by 6. X equals 5 6. So you got negative 4 13ths and 5 6. Okay, let's do a couple more of these and we'll go into where we're factoring. 9x times 3x minus 2 times 2x minus 1 equals 0. Is this one going to have 2 x's? More like 3, huh? We have 3 x's here. We have to set each one of these factors equal to 0 because 0 times anything is 0. So we're going to set each one equal to 0. 9x equals 0, 3x minus 2 equals 0, and 2x minus 1 equals 0. Okay? 9 times what is 0? Divide by 9. 0 over 9? What is that?
0.
0. It's 0 if the 0's on top. It's undefined if it's on the bottom, right? So you can have a 0 on top. 9 times 0 is 0. Okay. This one, add 2 first. So you have 3x equals positive 2. And then what? Divide by 3. So you got 2/3. What about this one? First thing, add 1. 2x equals 1. Then what? Divide by 2. So we've got 0, 2/3, and 1/2. 3 answers for that one. Okay? So if it's already factored for you, you just set each factor equal to 0. Okay? The next problems you have, you're going to have to factor and then solve it. Solve like we've been solving. So let's do one of those. X squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. Okay, so this you're going to factor like you've been factoring on your homework. So the 21, you need to separate it. 1 times 21, 3 times 7, that's the only ways you can get it, right? Which ones subtract to give you 4? 3 and 7. We need a positive 4. Which one's positive?
7.
Positive 7, negative 3, give you a positive 4. So you have x times x for x squared. Then you have a minus 3, and you have a positive 7. Now, set each one of these factors equal to 0, just like you have on the part that was already factored. X minus 3 equals 0, and x plus 7 equals 0. Bless you. This one, just have to add 3. And this one, subtract 7. So your answers are 3 and negative 7. Okay, so you're going to be practicing more on the factoring that you've been doing on all your homework. So hopefully you learned it real good. Okay, next, how about x squared plus 16x equals 0? How are we going to factor that one? What's the first thing you look for when you're factoring? Common factor. Is there a common factor? X. They both have x. So factor x out. X times x will give you that. And we still need the 16. Here, we have the x. We need to multiply it by the positive 16, right? If you multiply this back, you get x squared plus 16x. You get it back. Okay? Set each one of your factors equal to 0. And then solve the one, this one's already solved. Solve the other one. So you have x equals negative 16. So you have 0 and negative 16 as your answers. How about if we have 16x squared minus 81 equals 0? How would you factor that? Do they have a common factor? No. Do you recognize that as something that factors? Are these perfect squares? This is 4 times 4, this is 9 times 9. This is the difference of squares. That's where you have the plus and minus of the same thing. 16 is 4 times 4, and you need the x because you have x squared also. So you have 4x times 4x. 81 is 9 times 9. The 9's go there. And remember, the difference in squares, you have a plus and a minus. It doesn't matter which order they're in. Okay? So putting each one of those factors equal to 0. First thing you're going to do is the 9, plus or minus the 9. This one minus the 9. And then divide by 4, right? On the other one, instead of subtracting, you're going to add 9 to both sides. 0 plus 9 is 9. Then you're going to divide by 4. Okay. So your answers will be a positive and negative of the same thing. You can either write both of them. You can do it like that, or you could put a positive and negative of 9/4. It doesn't matter. You can say it like that if you'd like to. Just saves on the writing. Okay, how about, let's do one like that. There's no 0 there. Could we subtract 100 from both sides? Then it would be a 0. If we subtract this 100, oops, minus 100. So we have 0 equals x squared minus 100. Now, does this look familiar? Where you can factor it? It's a perfect square, with minus in the middle. So this is a difference of squares again. So x squared is x times x. 100 is 10 times 10. And the difference of squares, you have a plus and a minus, right? So set each one of those equal to 0. X plus 10 equals 0. X minus 10 equals 0. So you can tell by looking at this will be a negative 10, right? And this one's going to be a positive 10. You're going to add 10 to both sides. So you have a negative 10 and a positive 10. Okay, let's do some more where you have to factor. Okay, there's no 0. If you take them all to one side to make sure you have a 0, make sure you leave your x squared positive, okay? Because you want x squared plus or minus something. So leave this side and subtract this to the other side. Okay, we're going to subtract 2x for both sides. So we'll have 0 over here. But we want these in order, like descending order. The x squared first, and then minus 2x, and then our positive 1. You want them in descending order so you can factor it. Okay. So since there's 3 terms here, we're going to need 2 factors. X squared is x times x. 1 is 1 times 1 only. Do those add to give you a 2? They do, but you need a negative, right? They need to both be negative. Negative 1, negative 1. Okay. So they're both the same. So when you set them equal to 0, you're going to have 2 of the same answer, right? You don't have to, when you solve it, you don't have to solve both of them because they're the same thing, okay? You just need to solve it once, and your answer is just 1. You don't have 2 things for x. You don't have 2 solutions. You just have that 1 solution. Okay, let's do some more. How about if you have one that looks like that? It looks like, oh good, we've got it factored. But to actually do it by factoring where it has 0, multiply this out. That's x squared minus 5x equals 14. So then you would subtract 14. How many of you would have just said, well, what we'll do is we'll put x equals to 14 and x minus 5 equals 14? That's what you might have thought you should do, but make sure you don't do that, okay? Okay, so we're going to subtract 14 now. X squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0, right? Okay, the ways to get 14. 1 times 14, and what? 2 times 7. Subtract to give you 5. 2 and 7, right? Okay, we need a negative 5, so which one is negative? 7's negative, 2 is positive. So we have x squared is x times x. Then we have positive 2. And we have a negative 7. Okay, set each one of these equal to 0. So minus 2 from both sides. You have x is negative 2. Add 7. X is 7. So you got negative 2 and a positive 7. If you put the 2 and the 7 up here, if you put like x equals 14, that wouldn't have been one of your answers, right? And if you put x minus 5 is 14, that would have came out to like 9. You would have had 14 and 9. That's not the right answers.
But 7 and 2 add up to 9.
They do add up to 9. But you won't be able to figure out a way to always make it work where it does that. So if you put the negative 2 as an answer in here, you'd have to put it in both spots. Put negative 2 here and negative 2 here. Okay, negative 2 times negative 7. See, that does work. Equals 14. And then if you put the 7 there, you would have 7 times 7 minus 5 equals 14. 7 times 2 equals 14. So it does work, but you can only solve it by getting everything on this side and putting the 0 here. That way you can factor this. Okay? So don't try to solve it if you got a number instead of the 0 over there. Get it all to one side with the 0 on the other side. Okay, let's do another one like that. Equals a positive 2. Don't set each one equal to 2. You've got to make that 0. Let's multiply this first. T times 3t. 3 times 1 is 3, t squared. And then t times 1 is just t, right? We want this to be 0, so we're going to subtract 2 from both sides. Okay, so we just brought this over here as a negative 2. Okay, that one we can't factor, huh? We haven't done any factoring like that, but you know it's going to be 3 times 1, right? 3 times 1. You know 2 is going to be 2 times 1, right? You just got to decide which place to put the 2 in. Okay? I'm going to do this with pencil where I can erase, or we'll just do it to the side. We'll have 3t, t, we're going to put 2, 1, and we're going to have the same thing, and we have 1, 2. Okay, this has to be a positive 1. This tells you they're different sides. This tells you that it subtracts to give you a 2, or it subtracts to give you 1. What you really got to do is go to your FOIL thing. This would be 3 times 2 is 6. The outside is 6. The inside is 1. See how that doesn't subtract to give you a 2, right? 3 times 1 is 3. Subtract to give you a 1. Subtract to give you the middle. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. Don't subtract to give you a 1. So that's where it needs to go. The 2 needs to go here. The 1 goes here. We need a positive 1, so we needed this 3 to be positive. Positive 3, negative 2. So this has to be positive. Positive 1 times 3. This gives us positive 3, so we need a minus here. So this would be a negative 2. So positive here, negative here. Okay, so 3t minus 2 equals 0. We're setting each one of these equal to 0. And the 1t or t plus 1 equals 0. First thing we have to do on this one is add 2. Bring the 3t down. 0 plus 2 is 2. Next step is divide by 3. So 2/3 is an answer, and this one, just subtract 1. So you got 2/3 and negative 1. Okay, then you have some graphs. Yes.
Why do we take the 2 that we made, we put negative and put it over the 3?
We divided by 3
Yeah.
because you have to finish solving it. 3t equals 2, so you have to do the opposite of what's 3 times t, you divide by 3. Okay?
Whatever.
If you had like 3x equals 1, you would have to do the opposite of this. That's 3 times x, you would have to divide by 3. So that would be, if it's multiplied, you have to divide. Remember, if it was subtracted, you add. So if it's multiplied, you divide. You're doing the opposite. Okay, you wanna do another one of those? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. There's not one just like it. Let me see. Let's do, this one has two fractions. 12y squared minus 5y equals 2. What are you going to do to make that 0? We're going to subtract 2, right? Subtract 2 from both sides. So you have 12y squared minus 5y minus 2. None of that combines. They're all separate. They're all different. They're not like terms, right? Okay, this one, we haven't done factoring this hard yet. Because we're going to have, for 12, you could have either the 1 times 12, or you could have, 2 times 6, or you could have 3 times 4. Okay? The 2, you know it's got to be 1 times 2, but you don't know where the 1 and 2 have to be, right? You know they need to subtract to give you 5. Okay, so if you put the 1 and 2 here, you would have 12 and 2. Those don't subtract to give you 5, right? So let's try 2 and 1. 24 and 1? No. Okay, let's try 1 and 2. You have 6 and 4. That does not subtract to give you 5. Okay, let's put 2, 1. There's 12 and 2. 12 minus 2 gives you 10. Okay, let's try 1 and 2. 4 and 6. No? It better be this last one then, huh? 4 times 2 is 8 and 6. 3 times 1. 8 and 3. 8 and 3. Those subtract to give you 5, right? Okay, this is an 8 and this is a 3. They need to be a negative 5. So we need the 8 to be negative and the 3 to be positive. I don't think you're actually really going to have any factoring this hard because we skipped the 2 sections that did this factoring. So seeing this is just going to help you like in your next class, like when you get to 120. But there's not going to be factoring this hard on your homework or your test here, okay? So don't let this factoring freak you out. So it'll be the 3x, and there's a 4x. That gives you 12, or y, sorry. These are y's here. And the 1 and 2. And now the 8 part needed to be negative. So this has to be negative 2 times 4. The 5, or the 3 has to be a positive. Okay. If you saw that and it was already factored, you can go from there though, right? If you didn't have to factor it, you could do that part. You could solve from here on. Set each one of these factors equal to 0. Okay. So first thing you do when you're solving, you have to do the plus or minus, right? Minus 2, we're going to add 2. So we have 3y equals 2. Then what do we do next? Divide by 3. This one, first thing you do,
Subtract 1 to both sides.
there's a plus 1, so you subtract 1. And then what do you do right here? Divide by 4. So you have 2/3 is one answer, and negative 1/4 is another answer. No parentheses. You can circle it or box it in, but don't put parentheses around it. Okay? Let's do Another one where you have to move it over, one that you can factor though. That was the yucky one. You shouldn't have had to do that one. Let's do one, 2y squared plus 12y equals -10. We need it to equal 0, so what are we going to do to make it equal to 0? Add 10 to both sides. So we have 2y squared plus 12y plus 10 equals 0. Okay, now we need to factor that. What's the first thing you look for? Common? Common factors. Y is not common. How about numbers?
Number
2. 2 can factor out. Okay, divide everything by 2. This would just be y squared. Divide this by 2,
2. 6.
6y. Divide this by 2, 5. Okay? Now we can factor this part. That's not one of those hard ones that you haven't learned. You can actually factor that one. Okay, y squared is y times y. How can you get 5?
5 times
5 times 1 or 1 times 5. That's the only way you can get it. So you know it's got to be 1 and 5. Those add to give you a 6. 5 and 1 add to give you 6. It needs to be positive. So they're both positive, right?
1.
Okay, set each factor equal to 0. 2 equals 0? Well, that can't happen, right? So that one doesn't give you an answer. If it said 2x equals 0, it would give you an answer, but just 2 equals 0, you just get rid of that. Set each one of these equal to 0, and y plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so this one, what do you do? Subtract 1, -1, one of your answers. Subtract 5. -5. So you got -1 and -5. No parentheses, just the answers. Okay, that's enough of the solving part. In your book, you have some graphs, okay? And it wants to know the x-intercepts. The x is your horizontal axis. This is your x. It wants to know the x equals 0, where x is, or let me see it. No, it wants to know where y is 0. If it touches the x right here, that means y is 0. So pretty much you're doing the same thing that you've been doing, because you're going to have a problem like 62 says, this is a graph of y equals x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay, you see it right there? Okay, what you do is you just say 0 equals, just like we've been doing. Just because this looks like a graph and it looks different, we're still doing the same thing, okay? It's not different. You're just changing y to 0. And you're still factoring this part right here. X squared is x times x. To get 8, you do 1 times 8 or 2 times 4. They subtract to give you 2. 2 and 4 subtract to give you 2. You need a positive 2.
Can I just do steps?
Sure. You need a positive 2. So you need the 4 to be positive and the 2 to be negative, right? Positive 4, negative 2 gives you a positive 2 when you add them. So you'll have -2 and you'll have a +4. Now set each factor equal to 0. X minus 2 equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. Okay, so add 2 on this one, And this one?
Minus 4.
Subtract 4, right. So you have the 2. 2 is one of the places it crosses x, and negative 4 is one of the places it crosses x. The difference in your answers is you put it into, it says it wants the x-intercepts. The 2 is your x, y is 0. So you're going to put it in the coordinates on this part. Your answer looks a little different. And the negative 4, 0. Okay? So it's almost exactly the same thing you're doing, except you have to replace y with 0. The beginning part, you replace y with 0. And after you get both x's, you have to put them in coordinate form, where you put the x and the y. The y is always going to be 0. So your two answers will be your x numbers, and the y part will be 0. Okay? Let's see. These graphs right here, that's hard to see. These go down, so they have the negative x squared, and the other two are your homework. So let's just do a different problem that's kind of like that, where let's say it was a graph of y equals x squared plus 3x minus 15. I better turn that to 2. I'm just making it up, so I had to think fast. Okay, if you had a graph like that, first thing you would do is turn this to 0, right? And then we're going to factor this. We know x squared is x times x. 15, how do you get 15? 1 times 15, 3 times 5. Which would subtract to give you 2? Okay, we need a positive 2. 5 needs to be positive, right? The biggest one needs to be positive, the other one negative. So I have negative 3 and positive 5. Set each one of these equal to 0. So this one, subtract 3, we're going to add 3. And plus 5, subtract 5. And then remember in your answer, these will be your x's, so this is x, y is 0, here's your other x, it's negative 5, and the y is 0. So that's the only difference in your graphs. This part and this part. The answer part and changing that to 0. Okay? And that's the whole lecture. That's it. Any questions? I know you came in late, so you missed it, but it's on video.
Even if I came in early, I still.
Yeah.